Mr. Chair, it was a real honor to serve with you on Sub 1 my first 2 years here in the Senate and looking at all the school situations from K-12 all the way to the top. So it's a real honor to work with you. And colleagues, it's also been an honor for me to have served as the treasurer for the County of Orange, where I work directly with the Orange County Department of Education and the county's 32 school districts as their financial investor. I invested their funds and helped them with their bond issues. And when they did bond issues, we got really involved. We decided to make sure that the quality of the issuances were at a certain standard, and we would grade them. And so we would tell a district, your bond measure is an A or a B, and the districts were always trying to be an A. And in fact, a lot of the ideas that I implemented way back then showed up in Prop 39. So oversight and other components. But one of the big components of the 5 factors was you need to start setting money aside for the next time. You shouldn't just be borrowing to build new facilities, because it's costing you a whole lot more with interest costs. It's probably, if you started saving and setting funds aside, you could save half to 2/3 of the cost. So consequently, when this reserve cap showed up in 2014, it sort of got my dander up a little bit, to say the least, because it defies fiscal stewardship logic. It hurts the schools, which means it hurts the students, which means it encumbers the parents and future generations. We're now talking an unrestricted net assets of only 6% of the annual expenditures, only 6% of the annual expenditures. That is just too low. And so, Mr. Chair and colleagues, how do these districts deal with that new criteria? One, they can redesignate, reappropriate is what we would call in CPA language, and kind of take it out of unrestricted and move it into restricted. 2, you can obtain an exemption from your Department of Education. Or 3, you can spend down the reserves, and that's downright ludicrous. When some 90% of a school district's budget constitutes salaries and benefits, a 6% reserve represents only a few weeks of spendable cash in the case of an emergency. This is unconscionable, as teachers may forgo paychecks if no line of credit is obtained in time of need. And we're blessed since this past. We haven't had any earthquakes or any flood damage to school facilities. So we also have a tsunami coming with the pension costs. Mr. Chair, we discussed that just last week in Sub 1, and what's happening to the school districts when CalSTRS and CalPERS are lowering their investment assumption rate and raising their contributions. So a no or low reserve means intervention by the Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistance Team, which we get a report from every year at Sub 1 as well. So they give us a list of the schools that are having difficulties, and my old friend Mike Fine is now running that agency, and he was the chief business officer for Newport Mesa Unified School District back in the days when I first jumped into this industry. But that narrow band of 0 to 6% is too precarious. And with the passage now last year of Prop 51, school districts will want to issue debt to match, but their credit ratings will be below standard and incur higher interest costs. So, like I said earlier, when I get mad, I get motivated, and that's why I'm doing this bill. And I appreciate, Mr. Chair, that you took some time to talk to me about this, and I just want to state that I'm fully aware of SB 751, and I believe that this bill is cleaner and sharper and gets to the core. I'm also fully aware that the governor has made a deal with the teachers' unions. I understand the politics of it all, but I've just witnessed in the last few weeks that the governor, after having been pretty harsh to 4 cities in Riverside County for the last 4 years, killing every bill that was proposed by Senator Roth to try and give them their money as a result of it having been taken through SB 89 back in 2011. If the governor can do that to work out a bill on SB 1, then certainly he could look at this crazy idea of a reserve cap and change his mind as well. So to conclude, Mr. Chair, we've discussed in Sub 1 on a number of occasions that we have a teacher shortage in California. And if I were a young person trying to figure out where I'd want to teach, I'd be a little nervous if I had to be concerned about the fiscal viability of school districts because of lack of reserves. So may I dare even say that that might enter into their minds. So teachers deserve adequate reserves in the case of an emergency. Parents need the assurance that their districts are financially solid, and rating agencies agencies shouldn't have to be explaining why they're giving lower credit ratings because of the lack of reserves. Our kids, the students, deserve better. And so, colleagues, I urge a aye vote on Senate Bill 590. Thank you.